So you're thinking about buying a supercar. Let's face it, it rules most of our thoughts 24/7. But let's just say you've earned the money and now it's time to enjoy it. For most of us, when that time comes, the decision isn't always as straightforward as we might like to think, and the fantasy versus the reality starts to dawn on you.
In the cold light of day, when it's your cash on the line, what you end up buying might not be what you expected. So unless money is irrelevant to you, it's going to matter that your dream car can do other things than just say, you've made it. So when it comes down to it, what really matters to make sure that you get the most enjoyment for your money? If you had a sub 150k budget, what would your buying criteria be? You may well have a list, and here's mine. Firstly, it's got to stir emotion. Does it excite me every time I see it or think of going for a drive? And does it look good? Well, yes, this Audi R8 V10 looks fantastic, but does it hit some of the other criteria? Secondly, it's got to be a driver's car. Does it allow me to fulfill my potential and its potential at the same time? It's no good having all this trickery which makes the driver redundant. So then, does it have real world performance? Kind of performance that I can actually use on public roads without having to be a professional racing driver. It's got to be usable. It's no good having to worry either A, that it won't start every time I get in it, or B, it's too valuable to put miles on it. It's also got to be relatively easy to maintain. I mean, we're talking supercars here, so I'm not expecting small, minute bills, but a well-maintained car nonetheless should be perfectly manageable and mean that you don't need to remortgage your house. And for me, and this is just a personal choice, a manual is an absolute must for driver engagement. Wanting a manual then certainly narrows the field a bit and excludes quite a few newer cars. So finding the right one is going to take a little bit of thought. There are a scattering of Porsches that satisfy nearly all of the criteria, as does the Alpine A110 and the new Lotus Emira, but I'm not sure that we can count them as supercars, so they're out. After some thought though, I've landed on this, the last of the Ferrari manual V8s, the Ferrari F430.
The Ferrari F430 succeeded the 360 Modena and was built between 2004 and 2009. Ferrari claimed the new car was 70% new, and whilst it shared some of its component architecture with the 360, such as the bonnet, doors and roof, there were numerous performance upgrades to the engine, brakes and aerodynamic efficiency. To put that into perspective, it's 3 seconds faster from 0 to 125 miles an hour to 0 than its predecessor.
This is a very special car, and other than being achingly beautiful, it's also very rare, one of only 113 manual F430s ever made. That makes it rarer than the Scuderia. It's got such a pretty nose to it, this F430. Is it prettier than the 360? I'm not sure, but it is a very, very good progression. Of course, this car shares a lot of its architecture and some of the body panels are almost identical, but the F430 has a completely re-engineered engine. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but whilst we go around the side of the car, there's a couple of nice touches just to point out, such as on the wing mirror here, we've got these embossed F430 logos sitting in there. That's really a cool touch. You only get that on the driver's side of the car, not on the passenger side. The car rides on these very sensible 19-inch wheels and has these cast iron alloy discs. You could have spec'd this with carbon ceramic brakes if you're going to take it on a track or something like this, but these are more than enough for the roads that we're going to be driving it on anyway. This one's also been spec'd with these rather nice contrasting yellow calipers. This particular car has the Scuderia shields. I like those, think they're a nice touch. Some cars, quite rare actually to see a car without the Scuderia shields there. The paintwork on this is not retail red Rosso Corsa, it is actually Rosso Scuderia, which is the famous Ferrari racing colour, and it looks excellent on this V8 430. There's not much drama down the side of the car, it's all very smooth design with these vents and air intakes, until we get to the back, and we've obviously got this galleried view of the engine, and we'll lift that up just in a second. But I just want to draw your attention to the back of the car, because this is the Enzo era. So you get these 4 Enzo style rear tail lights, and then below that these quad exhausts. This particular 430 has got the Ferrari sports exhaust and also the Challenge manifold, which we'll be able to see just in a little second when I pop that open. Again, the rear of the 430 sort of divides opinion, but I have to say it has stood the test of time and is really growing on me. Okay, we'll pop open the engine bay before it starts to rain and have a look in there. So just a little flap there.
An entirely new engine was developed for the F430, a 4.3 litre V8 producing 483 horsepower. It has 4 valves per cylinder instead of the 5 that there were in the 360, and it produces way more torque, 343 pounds-foot compared with the 275 pounds-foot of old, and it'll rev to 8,600 RPM. All that grunt will get you from a standstill to 60 in 3.6 seconds.
Got the Ferrari factory sports exhaust in here, and the tailpipes sticking out the bottom, where you'll see, actually again, this was a period where we started to see bigger diffusers. Look at the size of that thing on the back there. It looks super cool. Right, now this is quite exciting because it's the first time we ever saw a Manettino dial on the steering wheel. This F1 inspired dial, which you click different driving modes and enables you to experience the car in a different way. It's not a gimmick, it's actually quite a useful thing to have, because we've got several driving modes here. We've got snow and ice, if it's pretty cold like it is today. We've got a wet weather mode, sport, which is probably what you generally want to drive around in, race, and then complete lunatic mode, where you turn absolutely everything off. Other than that, the steering wheel's quite uncluttered, other than this big red engine start button, which you can just push there. We've also got, at 10 and 2, right where your thumbs would go, the horn. So actually, as you're driving along, if you're pressing hard, getting quite spirited, you might mistakenly press the horn, but that's no problem at all. That's quite good fun. Ahead of you, massive rev counter, and because we've got the manual, you don't actually see the gear selection on that. If you had the paddle shifts here, it would then show you what gear you'd selecting, but obviously we don't need that. We've got a 6-speed manual here. And it's this 6-speed gearbox which makes this car so very special, because it's the last manual V8 Ferrari ever produced. Are we going to see one again? Who knows? But at the moment, it makes this car very, very special indeed. Now, while some might think that the Manettino dial is a bit of a gimmick, it is actually very useful, and there's some good motivation behind it, because Ferrari obviously wants to keep its customers alive and well to buy another Ferrari. So as well as fitting this for various driving modes that they're going to encounter, they also fitted some computer trickery like an E-diff and a limited slip differential to make sure that mere mortals like myself could actually get round the corner and enjoy the drive without any drama. The limited slip differential very cleverly manages the distribution of torque and ultimately makes you look like a better driver than you are. Right, so let's get out for a drive. I'm going to get my seat into position, and this should be interesting because the last Ferrari I drove was a 360 Challenge Stradale, which is as close to the 430 as I think I've come, and of course that automatic paddle shifts. This has all important manual and 3 pedals, so let's get out there. Right, finally out of the cold and into the car for a drive. No artificial buttons to press to get extra loud noises out of the engine. Just that beautiful, naturally aspirated Ferrari V8 with a sports exhaust, ready to bark. Oh, and is it ready to bark? It is lovely. So then, does it stir emotion? Well, it absolutely does. Even if you're driving at slow speed, you look in your rear view mirror and you've got that beautiful framed glass gallery view of the engine, and you look out your wing mirror and you see the air vents protruding out the side of the car. So there's theatre all around you. And as supercars go, this is very usable, very practical, even on a daily basis if you so wish, because you've got plenty of storage up front there. We've got air conditioning in here. We've got, well, a little bit of cabin storage behind you there. So it is a very usable supercar. It's got a large fuel tank, so you can happily go on long road drives. The settings on the Manettino dial here also means that in the real world you can switch between modes to suit the environment that you're in. Today it's been slightly damp and cold, so you can put it in wet. If things dry out a bit later, I can put it into sport and have quite a different style of drive. Oh, here we go. Here we go. The performance is exciting, but it's not like ludicrous numbers that you can't even use 1/10 of the power that it has. You can use pretty much all of this, the only limitation being you and your talent. Now, steering is nice and light, dancing around in your hands like a ballerina. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Ah. Such a nice size, this car. You just feel like you're sitting just at the right point in it. Not too far forward, not so far away from the front of the car that you can't see things. You've got the nice haunches so you can plant each tyre where you want it to go. Feels good. The fantasy versus reality thing is a real thing when you start to drive these cars. I always thought that driving around in a Lamborghini Diablo would be the best thing since sliced bread. But the reality of driving a massive, unwieldy thing like that on the UK public roads was actually a bit of a nightmare. Whereas this, it's the right size, I'm comfortable, I can see out of the windows, and I can enjoy the damn thing and actually park it, for Christ's sake. In years to come, we're all sat around chatting on forums or Instagram about what car we should have or wish we could have bought. I well imagine that high up that list will be a manual F430. And yes, it's a Ferrari and it's a supercar, but these aren't known to have the ruinously expensive maintenance bills that you might find from a 355, for example, which had an engine which was particularly difficult to access every time you wanted to change a cam belt, for example. So really what you get with this is exciting, usable performance wrapped in a gorgeous package, and a special car, a rare car, the last of the V8 manuals. This car in manual form really is the way to go. Just simply never tire of it. That sound, that gear change, oh, it's just a joy. So if it came to it, your money, you have to live with it, what would you actually buy? I think you'd be hard pushed to do one better than an F430, don't you?